I believe that all of us share a deep need for sense of belonging. And sense of belonging has a lot to do with how we interact with people and places. Have you, as an adult, visited a place where you grew up? Maybe you never left, but no matter how far or how close you are to your childhood home, going back is filled with nostalgia. Hopefully happy memories, maybe longing for the good old days, missing the loved ones that now are gone. The place can be very powerful in evoking these feelings, which in turn makes us vulnerable and therefore deeply human. I was born and raised in Krakow, Poland. Early on, my relation with my city was complicated. Through the eyes of a 6-year-old, the public space during communism did not feel safe or pretty. Buildings looked gray, and the new development left much to wish for. Oversized monuments of communist system dominated large plazas, which to little feet seemed like an angry sea of never-ending pavement. As a young girl, I had a hard time figuring out the logic behind the system because there was none. Think of a long line of people in front of a store, any store, 4 in the morning, trying to get as close as possible so they make the cut and buy something, anything. No, I'm not talking about Black Friday. I'm talking about everyday occurrence and effort to buy anything other than vinegar. For some reason, there was always plenty of vinegar. The public space became a silent witness of this chaos, a scene of quarrels over a stick of butter, even toilet paper. I also remember that the public space was a stage of Labor Day marches that, in our country at the time, were nothing else than yet another way to indoctrinate people. I remember violent demonstrations, people getting hurt while fighting for the right of free speech. But the times were changing, and by 1989, Krakow was free. Our old city square, graced with medieval and Renaissance architecture, flourished again, now open to the flow of Western visitors. Historic architecture and urban space were now on everyone's mind. It was one of the most precious assets our city had. You had to notice because what used to be gray and sad became beautifully restored with joyful greens, happy yellows, and maybe a splash of gold. It was an awakening. I claimed my city and stitched my identity with its people, its history, its buildings. My high school mates and I got into a habit of walking to Center City after school, hanging out in little cafes with an espresso and our intellectual thoughts. It was so adult-like, so French, so sophisticated. Our magical city center became the center of our cultural growth. Think of it, all the big and small events that shape our lives and our nations unfold in a physical context that to us, to our memory, becomes a tangible symbol of passage of time. That's why part of us is gone when they tear down our school, our church, our home. So for a moment, let's think about the key places that shape our 24/7 existence. My question is, are they worthy vessels of our memories? Do they stand up to our expectations, or do we need to put our rose-colored glasses to make it all look better? When I moved to the United States, I became fascinated with the urban spaces of downtown Chicago. Suburbs, however, posed a problem for me. Here, I found myself, ironically, without a driver's license, with no sidewalks or sidewalks leading to some bleak developments, shopping malls that come and go, and infrastructure that does not support the culture, but rather ridicules it. You know what Frank Lloyd Wright used to say? A doctor can bury his mistakes, but an architect can only advise his clients to plant vines. My sentiment exactly. The only problem is that the vines don't grow fast enough to cover the ugliness that spreads around this globe. Here in the United States, we are dealing with a situation when this beautiful country is now defined more by urban sprawl and economic segregation than by its vibrant, beautiful city centers. That is a big problem. Why? Because urban sprawl and ugly buildings have a negative psychological impact on us. They affect our mood, our performance, our relations. Such public space promotes isolation, boredom, crime, lack of civic involvement. This is not only an American problem, this is a problem for all of us, just the same way that environmental issues are global issues. Some cities and some countries just deal with it better than others. You know, I never cared for the term speculative development. You know what the synonym for the word speculative is? Hazardous, risky, dicey. We need systematic development. And systematic approach to things as complex as community building require a comprehensive, inclusive strategy. Are you familiar with the term creative placemaking? You see, over the last decade or so, economists, social scientists, community builders independently and officially came to a very important conclusion: that the arts and culture play a key role in shaping healthy and successful economies. When people of different backgrounds commit to working together persistently and passionately, that's when the magic happens. And when we use arts and culture as the glue in this process, that's when the heart of our community gets healthier and bigger. That's when the areas that were once dim and depressed can be turned into some of the most vibrant places. I believe that arts and design connect the dots. They humanize any problem. They bring compassion into the equation. So, you may wonder, do I feel like I belong now? When I moved to Springfield, Ohio in 2005, I found myself living in this house. My husband bought it before I met him. You probably think, oh boy, you must love him very much. I do. I won't lie, this kind of project can get overwhelming quickly. Sometimes it requires a jackhammer and a strong Polish woman. But I'll tell you, a building with character has its own way of growing on you, steering your imagination. Once neglected, our historic district is coming back, and it all started with a tiny group of brave people, and now there is a neighborhood full of like-minded, crazy people. We are not alone. As Margaret Mead beautifully said, never doubt that a small group of committed, thoughtful citizens can change the world, even when situation seems hopeless. A situation like this. Frank Lloyd Wright's Westcott house, a piece of architecture by the most famous American architect in a state that frankly seemed beyond repair. 12 years later, we not only have it back, we use it every day to inspire people. Don't you think that sometimes we get a little careless? We treat our buildings and urban spaces as if they were so disposable. We submit to speculative reality. In Krakow, we have a royal castle. Let me tell you, this castle has been through a lot. Swedish invasions, Prussian army, Austrian troops, and a banquet hall for Nazis. Centuries later, this beautiful structure still stands and is well. Let's treat our buildings and urban spaces as if they were actually here to stay. Then, maybe, we will not only preserve, but we will build to leave behind something worthwhile, something that brings light and inspiration to other people. We have a responsibility and a phenomenal opportunity to weave our built environment into the life of community so it becomes a nurturing context of ongoing, meaningful human interaction, a spark and conduit for our ideas, thoughts, emotional growth, a symbol of our civic pride. I'm sure that today in this crowd, we are lucky to have many community leaders. Please place the artists and designers at the center of your planning. Do not treat arts and culture as an icing on a cake, but rather as a main binding ingredient, eggs if you will. All of us, truly, should learn and articulate for ourselves what's unique about our community. Let's cherish and support it. Let's build things that are worth our memories. Thank you.